Advent, Week 2, Wednesday. A reading from St. Augustine's Discourses on the Psalms. God's promises are given to us through the Son. God fixed a time for His promises and a time for fulfilling what He had promised. The period of His promises was from the time of the prophets up to John the Baptist, and the period for fulfilling what He had promised is from John and henceforward to the end. God is faithful. He made Himself our debtor not by accepting anything from us, but by promising us such great blessings. The promise was not enough. He even chose to be bound by writing, creating for us a kind of bond for His promises, so that when He began to fulfill His promises, we might contemplate in Scripture the order of their accomplishment. The period of prophecy, therefore, as we have before now frequently said, was the announcement of the promises. He promised everlasting salvation and an unending life of blessedness with the angels, an unfading inheritance, everlasting glory, His own dear face, His sanctuary in heaven, and by the resurrection of the dead, no further fear of death. This is, as it were, His final promise, towards which all our endeavors tend, and after we have received it, we shall seek nothing more, demanding nothing more. Nor has He passed over in silence in His promises and prophecies how that final state will be reached. He promised to men the divine nature, to mortals immortality, to sinners justification, to castaways a state of glory. Because the promise of God that from mortality and corruption, from this weak and abject state, from dust and ashes, men would become equal to the angels of God, seemed incredible to men, He not only made a written covenant with them so that they might believe, but also gave them a mediator as a pledge of His promise. This was not some prince or any angel or archangel, but His only Son. Through that Son, He intended to point out and show us the way by which He would lead us to the goal He had promised. It was not enough for God to give us His Son merely to point out the way. He made the Son Himself the way, so that you might journey with Him as your guide, as He walks in His own way. The only Son of God was to come to men, to take manhood to Himself, and through what He took to become man. He was to die, rise again, ascend into heaven, sit at the right hand of the Father, and fulfill among the nations what He promised. After the fulfillment of His promises among the nations, He is to fulfill this promise to come again. Then He will come to demand what He has previously given, to separate the vessels of wrath from the vessels of mercy, to repay the wicked as He has threatened, and the righteous as He has promised. The whole of this was to be prophesied, was to be announced beforehand, was to have its future coming declared. It was not to come suddenly and strike terror, but was to be believed and awaited.